All right. Well, here we go, guys. My name's Chrissy Mominee. I'm the intern supervisor at the Toledo Zoo. My formal role before we actually began our internship program was a Blandings turtle technician at the Toledo Zoo. We've had a long-standing turtle surveying team all across Northwest Ohio, Black Swamp areas to the west of Toledo, and the marsh areas to the east of Toledo too. Like we mentioned before, that Matt Cross has come in and he's talked a lot about our Blandings turtle program. Today, I'm gonna not really focus so much on the turtles. They'll make their appearance, but today I'm talking specifically about the 6 people you see in front of me. We are looking at, from left to right, Daviana, Chris, Hunter, Felicity, Kai, and Daishan. These were our 6 interns of a new pilot program we began at the zoo to increase diversity and inclusion, specifically on our team in conservation. Like I said, this was the first year we did it. We are now in the planning stages for our next summer moving forward, but I'm going to talk about the history of why we are bringing in these 6 special people and some of the things we learned from our first year of having interns on our team. So why did we do this? Well, there is a massive diversity deficit all across environmental science fields, but especially in the field of conservation. 80% of people who work in conservation fields today at one point had to work for free with volunteer or unpaid internships, which creates definitely a dynamic with people who usually have deeper pockets can join the field of conservation. So this really will negatively affect traditionally underrepresented groups to make it into STEM fields. That's what happens is the past 3 years we've been doing these field work. Everyone has been from a certain background. They've been able to take that risk of coming to join the zoo where your pay is a little bit lower, where you're joining a season where it's only 4, 5, 6 months, not a full-time gig. It has a beginning and end date. You're required to have a certain level of education. Most of the time, that's a bachelor's of science. There has been a few times where we've had people who are active college students. There has been a few times where we've had people who have masters that join our field work, but there's always been that catch where if you want to come join our team, you have to have this level. And also, we always ask for previous field experience. So even though this could be your preliminary job to find your dream job in the conservation field, it still is a weird dynamic where you have to have this to get that. So it creates just this spiral where it's just so much harder for people who have been traditionally underrepresented to join. And that can be shown across other degrees, where 2% of environmental science degrees goes towards Black students, and 4% of the field is made up of Hispanic and Latina people too. So let's dive in a little bit more of those obstacles that we've seen. I'm going to represent this using the Pitfall game from Atari back in the day. So you can see our employee who's running right towards their dream job. And in this example, it's going to be working at the Toledo Zoo. So we already discussed that the cost of this dream job is pretty low. It's a nonprofit, it's not long, but there's also those hidden costs where you need to have specialized equipment to come into this field. You need to have your boots, you need to have hiking boots, you need to have your sunscreen, you need to have bug spray, hats so you don't mind getting muddy or dirty, all sorts of clothes that can help you while you're in the field for 40 hours a week. That takes sometimes years to build up those extra comfort things and those things that you can provide to even keep yourself safe while you work outside. Same thing, season is problematic. We already discussed that sometimes you have to be done with school by that point. But we work when the turtles work, and they start coming out in the spring, which is April, and we go until late August, sometimes Labor Day too. So this means you either have to quit a job at the beginning of the season and keep your fingers crossed so you can go back, or you kind of have to start over and go back. So this just kind of makes a roller coaster that creates all sorts of conflicts with other job opportunities. Transportation. Toledo is definitely a city where you need to have a car to get to and from work. It's not really walkable. It's not quite bikeable yet. Fingers crossed that changes. But also, it's just one of those places where the city transportation is kind of coming once an hour. So if you miss a bus, you could be late to work by an hour too. And then family work commitments. When we have these seasonal jobs, it really takes away from things that you could be doing with your family. We have people who travel across state lines to come in to work for us too. So it can be tricky to have people meet all these hurdles. And we already talked about that. Usually we require having a bachelor's of science, and that's just kind of how the field has been set up. So definitely all these create all these hurdles to get into getting your dream job. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to remove these. How do we bring these barriers down and create access to working at Toledo Zoo? So that was our goal. We want to create an internship program where we can take adolescents who think they might have a career in this, maybe not, but they want to be a part of it. So we create this internship program that we can bring students to be a part of our team. It is super important to do this at this age in high school because they become their own role models. They can become the own scientists they need to see in the field. They don't have those role models currently right now. Since the field is very much looking the same, we can start bringing them in so they can start having that identity within themselves. And in the future, start seeing people that look like them that can come in to join too. So two big goals that we need, or two big objectives to our goals, is provide field conservation experience up to 5 students annually. We got really lucky and we were able to support 6 students this year, which is very awesome. And then our second objective was evaluate program effectiveness by assessing knowledge changes, feelings of inclusion, and career influences. All right. So this was not just something we decided we could do, turn of a year. It took years and years building up this program specifically for our partnership. So where do we actually need to focus to get our students from? The picture you're seeing is a Natural Science Technology Center, which is a career technology school in the Toledo public school system. This is for students who come from other TPS schools that are interested in a field with wildlife sciences, animal science, and urban agriculture. They come to these schools and they can learn these real technical in-depth skills. They have specific specialized areas in this building where they go to these classes. It is a dream school that I wish I could have gone to. It is amazing, incredible. And then the other side of this is all the students who go to the school qualify for free or reduced lunch. So that kind of meets one of those socioeconomic barriers where we were talking about this pay to play when it comes to sometimes the conservation field. This is bringing in people who may not ever get that true chance to come in with the way it's been set up currently. So Matt Cross, the director of conservation, has been on the science advisory board for years. He's created amazing partnerships with these teachers. They've been working together for a long time. The science teacher for the wildlife sustainability has come out with me in the field. She's worked side by side with me. So it's an amazing program. We are in and out of that school a lot working with them. It seemed like the perfect place to start. So phase 2 is let's meet the community. So you're looking at Bob Vasquez and Romulus Durant. These 2 men we brought together in a meeting and we sat them down and we said, what do you want to see from this program? These are 2 very influential people. One of them is the superintendent. Another is the president, and he works at the zoo. So we needed to hear from them what they wanted from us, how we could do this and go about it the right way specifically. So after this meeting, they gave us letters of support. And so that helped us apply for the grant that we got. So this grant is so influential in the community too. They have ties to other community organizations around Toledo, and it is a perfect grant source for us. So they funded us for 2 years. So we are entering phase 2, year 2 right now, and they helped us get our students in. So now returning back to all those obstacles that it takes to joining the field, we could specifically hone in each individual thing and find a way to bring down that barrier. So when it came to cost, we create paid internships. These are not unpaid internships that you hear about. A lot of people need to go through. We were able to buy them their equipment. They got book bags, they got hiking boots, they got rain boots, they got waders, they got sunscreen, they got bug spray, water bottles, hats, everything, so that they could start day one and go right into the field and jump right in. So then the other thing that was very, very important to our equity was to make sure that we provided lunches every day. That way everyone's on the same playing field. It doesn't matter if you come with or without a lunch, you're going to be handed one that morning. And they actually got to pick it out themselves too. So it was something always a little different. So then the next thing was that we needed to wait until school was out. That's not too bad. So we just waited till June 5th and we could have the students come after their school year. And then they went till the same time our typical season for turtles is ending anyways in mid-April before school starts. Then a big thing was we were providing transportation for them to and from work. Part of our staff made it part of their day to make sure to go pick up our students, come to work, and take them home too. Some of our students we brought in weren't old enough to have licenses. Some of them did, but they just didn't have cars. Another part of it is in these families, sometimes the car is being shared by everybody in the family, which is including mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle, the children, everyone. So this was such an important, valuable thing that I know personally a lot of mothers would call me and say, thank you so much, and how this made such a difference. Then we were flexible around their schedules. This was so important because they're high school students. They have sports, they have friends, they have so much going on. There's a lot of commitments around when you're a high school student. We really wanted to make sure that there wasn't just such a very rigid schedule that it wouldn't work perfectly around all their commitments. And then the qualification, the barrier we brought down here, this was one of my favorite aspects of this program is the teacher that we work with hand selects her students. So not all these students are the same. They are all unique in their own way, but then also ensured that there was no barriers in the application process when it came to grades or language. The teacher just picked a student and said, this person is creative, they are diligent, they're a hard worker, they'll be perfect for this program. And that was really it. The students that our teacher sent us were the students we took. All right, so here's a little bit of turtles. There's not totally bare. The turtles are an interesting piece of wildlife, and especially when it comes to field of conservation, there's always that feel when we're talking about saving wildlife, people just think to lions, polar bears, these very out there animals that definitely need help. I'm not saying they don't, but I am saying that there's harder opportunities to go experience that animal and its life and its habitat versus turtles that are literally in our backyard that are still endangered at the same rate too. So we can bring out people for years and years. You can see our community partners from Metro Parks. We've brought out the public to come find box turtles with us in the woods. We'll go into the park actively doing our surveys so families can come up and ask us questions. They can see the animals themselves. Summer camps have been able to join us. It's an animal that is really easy to connect with because it's also small enough and cute enough that you can see a lot of the help it might need too, especially in its environment. All right. So now we actually brought them in the summer. This says results because now I'm going to transition to tell you about how it went and then everything we learned from too. So these are some of our favorite pictures of the hundreds we take because they just really sum up how amazing this can be working with high school students too. So on the left is Daviana and Kai. Daviana came in as our youngest intern. And what she's doing in this picture is she's taking blood from a turtle, drawing a blood sample that we'll use to send out for DNA analysis. But Daviana came in and she was such a star at drawing blood where a lot of our adult staff still takes months and months getting comfortable trying to figure it out. So this is her training a new intern that had a later start coming on. And so that's raw emotion. That is Kai's first time seeing turtle blood and first time learning how to do it. And Daviana is drawing a perfect amount of blood from that turtle for us to send off. And the next picture is a few days later, Kai successfully doing it herself. So this is just showing that a lot of times we have adult staff to do these kind of technical skills, but these teens are doing it and doing it so well too. Then first on the right is Daishan, and this is just an example of how great of workers and how harder workers teens can be, because what you don't see in this picture is 5 other people waiting around in thigh-high water looking for this turtle that he has in his hands. It has a transmitter on it, so we were trying to find it using our radio telemetry GPS device, and we knew she was in the water, but we kept seeing her swim around us. And so this is Daishan not giving up. He reached down, picked her right up out of the water. It was a little unbelievable, but goes to show that they can really do it all. And then another part of the experience was to make sure they're not only just learning our surveying and researcher techniques, they're taking back with them that communication skill, that literacy to explain to them. So what better to do at the zoo than set up an educational table, brought out all of our field gear, laid it all out, and you can see that it was a pretty big hit. Like, we were not there for very often, but our table was always busy. And you can see in every single one of these pictures, one of the interns is actively involved, helping a kid maybe learn how they might be a scientist and measuring, how do you measure a turtle? How can you do it? And telling their stories from the field. One of these moments was definitely where you could see the light bulb go off and someone be like, I am the expert. I really am the scientist. I've learned so much this summer. And then they can share it back with our local community and our guests. So not just always turtles, we're a very small but mighty conservation department. And we also work with Lake Sturgeon in a reintroduction program into Lake Erie. So the 3 pictures on the left side are when we went to collect the sturgeon eggs up on the border of Canada, and our interns got to go along. They got to meet the Fish and Wildlife Service partners we work with. It was a long day to collect that and handle these 200-pound fish, but it's an incredible, awesome day too. And then in the far opposite corner is the 3 interns over those tanks actually working with growing these fish and feeding them out. The picture in the top right is a federally threatened endangered species of snake. It's called a Copperbelly Watersnake. We are doing another propagation breeding program for those at the zoo. So another really special thing, not everybody gets to even see a Copperbelly snake in Ohio. And the bottom picture in the middle is a really cool trip that our partners from The Ohio State University invited us on. And it was Massasauga rattlesnake surveys. So another species that not a lot of people ever get to see, more or less get to see handled, like the way we do with Ohio State. And they got to see it all. They get to see a bunch of different opportunities that you can be when you join this field. So then, like we mentioned before, their school is already a very robust, sciencey school. It borders the Toledo Botanical Gardens for Metro Parks. So their school has the permitting to do turtle surveys. So over the years, we've gone into their school and have shown their teacher how to do her own turtle surveys in her backyard. So her students have been able to do them. But then when we've gone back this past fall, it was so amazing to see our own interns being the experts for their peers and their classmates and actually showing them how to process a turtle, how to set a trap, and why you should have it this way versus that way. And they just became the experts, and to see their confidence through the roof was amazing. So the next thing I'm going to talk about are the analyses that we were using to kind of gauge the success of our program. So this is where we use one of our partners from Bowling Green State University. It is a PhD candidate helping us create surveys that we can use to ask the interns perceptions of themselves before and after. So you can see where these things change. So this is them gauging their confidence and how much it's changed. So the first question is, applying and interviewing for conservation positions, how confident are you? You can see that switch over to very confident and moderately confident. And then also obtaining a job in the field of conservation, you can see that change from the before and after, more towards the strongly agree side. The next is the skills. We want to see, did you actually learn all the things that we handed you to learn? And it was a lot this summer. So really cool to actually see using radio telemetry for tracking wildlife, a very common thing in conservation fields, no matter what animal you're studying. This group kind of has a lot of bias, because if you see, they started off before the experience being very confident. And that was probably some of our older students who have been at NSTC, the Natural Science School, whose teacher already does telemetry with them. So that's okay, but we'll get more data once we have more than a couple of students. And then disinfecting gear to ensure the safety of wildlife. Also a really important thing across the board for any science you join in is understanding these technical things that are very important. So then this is the biggest part. So we talk about increasing our diversity for our team, but does that really mean anything if we can't really make them have that sense of belonging and inclusion? So when we ask them, I feel supported in the field of conservation, you can see it switch from not really being sure where they fit in, how can they belong here, to strongly agreeing. And then I feel encouraged to be myself among conservation biologists. Also the same shift from agreed and strongly agreeing too. So there's a lot of reasons why I think that our team definitely was able to switch over to having these feelings of inclusion this summer, but there's two big metaphors I want to throw out when it comes to this, because diversity is a numbers game. It can show you where you have inequities. It can highlight the approaches you can switch, the things you can change in your organization, but at the same time, it's just not sufficient enough to actually have inclusion. And that's the choice that you make when you have your team and your culture at your workplace. Diversity is about counting the numbers, and inclusiveness about making the numbers count. But then my favorite way that I've heard it said before that I think really applies to us is diversity is bringing people to the dance floor, and inclusion is getting them to dance together. Because quite literally, I was trying to get this to work, but usually on this slide, there's a TikTok that starts playing automatically, and I couldn't get it to work with my Zoom presentation, which I'm really sad about, because it's loud, it's fun, and it just shows that when we brought these interns in, they came in themselves fully and authentically, and they came in on our team. We supported them and we let them be themselves. And we used social media together. We did goofy things together. We had fun. And it really made our conservation work so much more impactful across the board, helping turtles when we could all really be this dynamic of ourselves together and learning from each other. It had the biggest impact than you can imagine. So now we're going to slightly move over to things we learned, things we're going to change, conversations we're having about moving forward. And one thing we want to try to refine for our program this next summer are our post surveys, because this is where they're at work. So when we give them a survey and we're asking for an open-ended question that says, what part of diversity and conservation program did you enjoy the most? A student would probably say the experience. They don't really know what we're asking. That's not really like, they're going to give us feedback the way they're going to give us feedback. And maybe this wasn't the best way to engage them by just using a paper and giving them their own time to write down. You can even see one person wrote poop on the side of her paper, and the next one, would you change anything about the program? No, everything is cool. It's a cool all around experience. So I appreciate them, but at the same time, when we express to their teacher, like, man, we wish we would have gotten like some more elaborate explanations on their open-ended questions, their teacher said, hold on, I'm going to sit them down. Now they're back at school, and I'm going to ask them the same questions we asked them. And she came back with 5 pages worth of paragraphs and paragraphs of our interns overflowing with joy and emotion and reflection and the most beautiful quotes. Like, when I got these papers back, I was so touched, because I was like, wow, they really, really did take this to heart. And it really did do something for a lot of our students. So that's just one thing that we can think about, is maybe sitting down and orally having these questions asked so they can work through it on their own, more so than writing down and thinking I got to go back to work in 5 minutes. So this is something we're working on, and definitely open to suggestions too. Let's go. Okay, so a couple more things we learned is better in early planning. This is just kind of what happens with the first year of any program that goes down, but especially since our students, a lot of them, it was their very first job of their lives. So applying for a zoo job, there was a couple hurdles going through HR, orientation. It kind of had the students coming in staggered instead of all of them having a start date. So that's our wintertime work, is just going through all the details. Additional supervisors. We really want this program to get bigger and better, and we want to bring on as many as we can to increase our impact. But with increasing our impact means we need to find more funding to bring on more supervisors to also mentor these students. Staff training, when in the past, when we've been conducting our research team and our turtle surveys, we usually just bring in people who have a science background, whether that's working in a lab, working solo, fresh out of college. Not a lot of people come in with experience with youth and youth learning. So that's something we're going to focus on a little bit more this year while we have our staff for those first couple of months before the students come, giving them better tools in their toolbox to engage our teams. Additional vehicles, as simple as that. We drive a lot. We go out in the field, and we just need more seatbelts to get everyone to where they need to be. Lunch variety and high costs. These children come from a different place than a lot of people who were helping making this program. So they see the world a little differently. So when we're buying lunch from the zoo, we're also buying it at the zoo's price tag, and they sell their lunches at amusement park prices, which can be a little high. So one of the unexpected things was a lot of our interns would lean towards the cheaper meals. There's only so much we can think about with that, but that's something that we can start thinking about when it comes to lunches too. And then of course, refining the surveys, we can make those a lot better. So in a few hurdles, these are high school students. They are in the biggest social development stage of their life. Did that come in sideways? Oh no, my picture of Hunter is sideways. It was not like that 30 minutes ago, but that's okay. It's kind of showing him and his personality anyways. But I was gonna say, since these students are coming in at a time where they are learning how to be professionals, they are also learning professional boundaries at such a fast rate with us too. They're coming in being teenagers, and meeting them where they're at, and then also giving them that mentorship to grow too, is such an important part that we need to remember too, that they're on a major self-discovery part of their life, and we have to just be conscious of that too. Organization scheduling, since we were so adamant about making sure that that barrier was brought down, it kind of made our puzzle pieces mismatch a little bit when it came to like, someone needs to leave early, someone needs to come in late, but we all need to go and drive to the marsh at this time. So we still want to make sure we have this flexibility available to our students, but we're going to work on our end trying to make that flexibility a little bit more organized. Sorry, that says responses to the surveys, one other thing that we've already talked about, and then long-term sustainability. So we got this grant for 2 years, but we really want to keep going. We are not ready for this to end after 2 years. So one of the biggest hurdles that we are still trying to think about is how can we make this a long-term program where we're not continuously reapplying for a grant year after year after year? How can we get more money to even try to bring in more supervisors and more interns too? So something that is always on our minds is the sustainability of this program. So now comes one of the most honest things that come with doing a diversity, inclusion, equity program, is these honest questions and important dialogue we have to have. when it comes to bringing in people of color that have different backgrounds and from traditionally unrepresented groups in general. One big one, are we providing a real experience? These kiddos were handpicked from their teacher. They didn't necessarily apply to us in a very traditional way. Does that help them learn that skill and that career to go out and seek for this yourself? We're open conversation. Are we the ones that should be doing this? This is really hard to kind of realize that there are other people out there that maybe could provide that role modeling better than I can as in the science fields. But at the zoo, we really want to still do this. So we are here and we're doing it. What about other students? The students that are pictured right now are part of a volunteer zoo team program at Toledo Zoo. There's over 500 volunteers that are working for free at the zoo who maybe would love to come do a program like this. Like, how do we think about this moving forward? And then promoting diversity inclusion while not alienating anyone. This is all questions that we're asking, we're working through. But part of it is these questions are bringing growth for our program in general. This source of bringing in diversity, it means that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have to be vulnerable while we move on this journey to make sure that we're encountering people in the best way, making this the best program that it can be. Diversity is going to be disruptive in any organization you have. It's going to make people uncomfortable, but that role of disruption is such a big source of motivation, creativity, innovation, and change. And at the end of all these questions that we ask ourselves, I know at the end of the day that I still have a duty to amplify the voices that aren't getting heard in my STEM fields that I know they should be getting heard. So then the way I want to end this is for anyone who might be listening that wants to implement a DEI program at their own club, their own community, their own workforce, is to tell you why these things are worth it. So this is me back in 2018 when I first learned about my passion for field learning. This is my summer camp counseling out in Boston, Massachusetts. And one of the most impactful things was living in a coastal city and bringing in youth to the ocean side in the Boston Harbor Islands, where some youth had never seen the ocean before, where this city borders the coast, and some people have never had this experience out in nature. And the number one reason conservationists say they become conservationists is because they had a meaningful experience in nature as a child. That comes with a level of privilege that some children had and some didn't. But the biggest thing is making sure these children get out to have that experience, especially before those adolescent years where they can see themselves doing that. There's studies out there where if you ask girls who are 6 years old to draw a scientist, a large portion of them, 70%, will draw a female scientist. And then if you ask 16-year-old girls after they've grown to draw a scientist, it drops significantly. Only 25% of women will draw a female scientist. So this really drives home the point of the social belongingness that really peaks at your adolescent years and where you're confident about where you think you might go in your academic future and your career path. We don't want to keep making this diversity deficit in the future. We can really move forward to try to encounter these people and bring them out to see themselves as the scientists too. The next reason I'm so passionate about this is because I have seen these team programs work in phenomenal ways. This is once again at the New England Aquarium in Boston, where they had a teen program that was running for 30 years and would hire up to 80 or 90 students every summer. And they were all paid internships, all from Boston Public Schools. And that brought in such a diverse workforce for not only our education department, but all across the zoo or the aquarium and the gift shop, the visitor service, the box office. And all these people got to bring in who they were and their culture and their background. And it just made our impact so much bigger. Also, if you've ever worked with kids or teens, their morale is so high. They make work so much fun. I can't imagine sometimes going to work and not thinking about having this different generation with me to help me and help make me laugh and have fun. So after all this, all those hurdles, the big message is just do it. If you can find a way to increase diversity in your workforce, it is so worth it. It is the greatest thing that you can encounter, that you can see too. So this is all just encouraging to say, no matter what your role is in your group, your community, your institution, don't underestimate the influence and value that you bring to the table. So after going through this first year and learning more about how we can better equip our intern program, understand the importance of equity, I realized that this is such a big thing that we can't only just do this well, but we can keep kicking down the barriers for other people to come join us too. And I like to end on showing my interns again, because they asked me to come back as their science mentor this semester and help with their big science project. They came back, designed their own science experiment with me. And I just keep having this friendship, even maybe they might not come back and work for the zoo again, but I get to keep having this amazing friendship with them. So having a more diverse workforce and diverse colleagues has only enhanced my ability to do conservation work. It's brought people together from different communities and exposes us to a beautiful world of differences. And this DEI journey is going to be a journey, and it's going to be something that takes a lot of work for a long time. And it's going to require special dedication, not only from my part, my organization's part, my colleagues' part, but it's going to take dedication to realize there's always more you can do to keep bringing that source of motivation, creativity, innovation, and change too. And these are all the people I need to thank for making this such a great summer, such a great time doing our turtle research. And yeah, I'll check the chat real quick, see if there's any questions, but if anyone wants to ask any questions, feel free to do whatever the moderator says to do.
Chrissy, thank you so much. You can definitely hear your passion for the project. And the relationships that you made, which I think is amazing. I mean, I can just see the smile on your face. I can hear the excitement in your voice. It makes for a very dynamic, awesome presentation. Just a quick little, some housekeeping notes while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions. Tom has dropped several links in the chat box for us. The first one being for our schedule, which is at the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge webpage. That link is in there. There should be a link in there also for a survey that we would appreciate it if you took after you get done watching the video. Please remember this has been recorded, so you will, for those of you who weren't able to pop in right on time, that video will be available to be able to watch the whole thing. And just kind of to wrap up a little bit while again we're looking at that chat box, you know, again, Chrissy, you are an amazing speaker. It really makes sense why you are the Conservation Intern Supervisor there at the Toledo Zoo.
Thank you.
It's just amazing. And for our audience, just some things to know about Chrissy. She holds that Bachelor's of Science in Marine Biology from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. She also has worked as a naturalist abroad. She just has a very well-rounded background. And right now, her work is focusing around the Toledo Zoo's surveys for those state-threatened turtles that she showed us a few of. That Copperbelly Watersnake was amazing to me. I'd never even heard of that, so now I'm going to be looking that up. And along the Lake Sturgeon and those Blandings turtles. So again, hearing about your program and how you just really thought of everything from those car rides to the lunches to how do we coordinate schedules for folks who have to leave. I think that's just totally amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we're only trying to get better too. So we'll get there.
Chrissy, this is Tom Romito, board member of the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. I do have questions for you, but before I do, I wanted to ask if your three guests, Karen, Sydney, or Veronica, have questions. Give them first shot at you. People, if you have any questions, now is the time to do it. All you got to do is make sure your audio is on, or otherwise press the space bar and ask your question.
I do see one just popped up from Karen Buchanan. Hi, Karen. Yes, you can donate. there is a link. Let me unshare my screen or my Google. So then I will Google it and I will drop our conservation donation link real quick too. And I think if there is a special way to make sure it says internship program, that would, I think there might be a box. So give a little shout. Or if that is not the case, there should definitely be a donate to the turtle program, and all that goes towards everything. Let me check. I should have had that pulled up already.
That's kind of like how you get your flow for these. Everybody's being incredibly patient. Tom, you said you had a question for her.
I do. Chrissy, I'm interested in knowing, I understand your focus on diversity in this program. When you did the survey, every question had the word diversity in it. Was that helpful to you getting the data that you wanted?
So I am not totally sure, because I think a lot of our interns didn't really think of it as a diversity program too, because it was so, everyone got to be themselves and brought in who they were. So I don't think they really saw it as the way we worded it. Our partner that we work with at Bowling Green State University, she's the expert on creating these pre and post surveys for youth. So she's come up with these questions. She's the expert in these things, not me. Thank goodness we have that partnership. So it'd be interesting to go back and look and see if that does influence it. But as far as I could tell, I don't think it really did.
Okay, let me follow up if you don't mind. I know you got a grant up for $100,000 to do this. Can you give us some bold numbers on how you split that money up, how you apportioned it for your needs?
So that money, it's a really interesting grant too, because we got 52,000 of that for the first year. And then that broke down to being about 8,000 we could spend per intern. But that wasn't just paychecks, because they were only making 12 an hour. So I think paycheck wise, they walked away with, they could work up to 30 hours. And a lot of them wanted to max that out too. I think roughly 2,000 is what they each walked away with. Our rental vehicle was 3,600. Our lunches, I believe, were 1,400 for the year. I know that even this year with our 52,000, we were saving a lot of money to try to see where we could grow. So we tried to make this a big shoestring budget this year. And it really has shown that if we have the leftover money, we should definitely get another car. We should invest in another supervisor. That part of that budget also fund my paycheck. I am a grant funded position too for this program. So it broke down to being all sorts of things like that.
Okay, Chrissy, how many kids were involved?
We had 6 total students, 4 who identified as Black, 1 who was Latina, and 1 who had a learning disability.
Is that each year?
Oh, that was just our first year. Yes.
You're into year 2 now, right?
So that was part of the question is next year, since we are still really trying to build this machine and get it well oiled before we jump the gun and go big expansion, we're still planning on 4 to 6 this summer. And fingers crossed, we can actually bring 1 intern back from last year. It's been a balancing act of, we want to increase our impact, which means we need more numbers, we need more people to impact. But would the impact also be a year 2 individual coming back? So one of the women you saw me talk about, Daviana, she's the youngest in that program too. She potentially has a source of funding that might be able to come back and pay her to get a valuable lesson in being a mentor for a new cohort of students.
So Chrissy, do you have enough funds from that grant to do year 2 the way you want to?
So definitely, because we are going to get that 52,000 from the other half of that. We had to reapply for it to show that we can still make the most out of it. And I can officially say as of like a month ago that we got the money. We are going to do it again. And there's this long-term sustainability of it is where this applying year after year by grant is going to be one of the biggest hurdles money-wise for us. Yeah, that's going to be.
Okay. And lastly, Chrissy, where did you take the kids for their field work?
A big area was Harris Navarre Marsh. So where there's that private community on Sandy Beach, there's one of the best Blandings turtle populations right there. Also a big chunk at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. Always looking for Blandings there. McGee Marsh, Cedar Point National Wildlife Refuge, also founded by Chrissy Mominee of our area too. And another part was going to the Oak Openings region. There's a very tiny historic populations of Blanding turtles out there that we're still studying, and their numbers aren't doing as great as the Lake Erie Marsh side, but those were our two big travel areas.
Real fine. Thanks very much for that.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So Chrissy, I did have a question too, because you've really gone over your program again very well. So you mentioned some of the things you'd like to do as you expand, and you've mentioned some of the hurdles that you have. If you could wave your magic wand for this year 2, and could accomplish that one thing for your group, what would that be? What would that look like for you?
There's so many ways I can think about this question and answer it too. So we were just talking about bringing that student back. I really want this program to come into here's year 1's cohort, here's a year 2, year 3, where every year they build up. Like this year you take how to make a resume. This year you take a class on how to have a college application. That is still a lofty dream couple years down the road before we can expand and have that kind of buildup of a group. Another thing that we were just talking about today is transportation, where if I could wave my magic wand, I would have a shuttling service for these kids that would pick them up and drop them off every day, and find a partnership for someone that could do something like that. Hopefully I find them. I've been looking and trying to get my feelers out there and see what kind of partnership is out there. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things is the car issue too.
Yeah, I could see where that would be rough, because you're right. For them to use a bus or not have a car when there's only one car in the family, that's huge. And much like where you did some of your work at in the Boston area, a lot of your interns wouldn't even be able to get out to places, even though Ottawa's not that far.
Yeah,
it is that far.
It is that far.
Yeah.
And the thing with Boston is there was amazing transportation system. There was a train coming every 3 minutes. That is not the case in Toledo, where there's one bus every hour. So, and the other trick is sometimes our students just live right across the Anthony Wayne Trail in a neighborhood. So if they're waiting an hour to just go across the street, it's one of those situations. So that is where I would wave my magic wand the most, for sure.
Great. Chrissy, did you find your link?
Chris, I see that we have 2 more guests who are kind of latecomers. They are Libby and Sarah. Ladies, if you have any questions for Chrissy, now is a great time to ask them, because we're almost done. Anything you'd like to know about? You can just press your space bar and speak, or make
sure. I think I found it too. Let me make sure.
What do you got, a question in the chat?
I thought I could just find a turtle link. I thought our team had it very clear, donate to Blandings turtles, but it probably is in this form that I just got.
Perfect. And that's Libby, thank you so much for letting us know that you didn't have any questions as of yet. That's awesome for letting us know that. Tom, did you have anything else that you wanted to do?
No, thanks. Appreciate it. We had good participation tonight.
We did.
Thank you, everybody.
And for those of you who just came on, you'll get the recording by virtue of having registered for this, so you can hear the whole thing as soon as you see it in your email.
All right.
Chris, do you want to give a shout out to the refuge or friends of the refuge?
Yes, anyone in Northwest Ohio or who is planning a good trip to Ottawa County anytime soon, definitely stop by Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. It is beautiful, it is gorgeous, and the best time to go, I think, is May when the birds are all there. So, and definitely give a special like and follow on Facebook to the Friends Network on Facebook too, for Friends of National Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah,
And
thanks
to
so
bounce
much.
off of that a little bit, because there's two Chris's and
Yeah,
there's a
that's
Chrissy
right.
and a Chris on the call today, so it's getting a little confusing for us. So to bounce off of that, and thank you so much, Chrissy, for that really great shout out. I am Chris Johnston. I am one of the board members for the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. Just kind of a reminder of who we are. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We were established in 1997, and we are the support for Ohio's only national wildlife refuge complex. We do things much like you do, Chrissy. We do youth development. We do public youth projects. Slow down a little there. And we also do land acquisition and restoration. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are located on the southern shore of Lake Erie near Oak Harbor. And what makes that so special is that it is some of the most critical wetland habitats in the world. So again, if you are interested in learning about us, those links are in the chat. There you can learn about, again, the programs that we offer the rest of this quarter. Also, what we have going on at the refuge. There's links to the refuge website directly. There's just a wealth of information to take a look at. And much like Chrissy said, you should come visit us, especially in May. And I think if we don't have any additional questions, we'll go ahead and end it for the evening. If that sounds great, that gets us just about at the top of the hour.
Awesome. That's perfect.
Thanks so much, Chrissy, for being here tonight.
Of course. Yes. See you in May, Sid.
Yeah, we'll see you in May. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
So long, Chris. Good work.